Doors open at 6:30, but you can see people have been lined up here since as early as 5 o'clock. Pedestrian barricades are already up to keep people on the sidewalks and off the streets. As me and my photographer move farther and farther back through the neighborhood, we seem to find more and more damage. We received reports not too long ago that a possible tornado could have touched down here. If you take a look behind me, the winds carried these cars on top of each other. A small plane crashed just before 11 a.m. this morning. Now I'll step out of the frame to give you a better look at it. Trey, today voters had to stay 6 feet apart from everyone else at the polls and make their selection on the voting machine using Q-tips instead of their fingers. 63% of their residents have tested positive for COVID-19, and if they're not at full capacity, that percentage could be even higher. The surge in hospitalizations has officials at some local hospitals reactivating some restrictions like limiting visitation. Starting at noon tomorrow, the city of North Myrtle Beach is requiring customers and employees to wear face coverings at salons and retail businesses within city limits. Walters says it takes 4 to 6 employees to properly man just one of these metal detectors. People here tell me anytime there's a major flood event, people who don't live here tend to come around out of curiosity. Now you can make sure the census you're taking is safe by clicking on the little lock icon in the upper left-hand corner, and it'll let you know if your connection is secure. 61-year-old Marianne Marsh left her Conway home on Valentine's Day to go for a walk, and she hasn't been seen ever since. Her family has spent the last 10 days combing through Horry County, and they hope the Q Center for Missing Persons will have better luck than they have.
I honestly just don't know where to go next.
Joy McBay says she has no leads and she's had no luck.
We've covered Aner, Myrtle Beach, most of Conway, I believe. Surfside, Garden City, Murrells Inlet.
10 days later, and neither she nor Horry County police have found her mother, 61-year-old Marianne Marsh.
I'm baffled by that.
On Monday, the Q Center for Missing Persons joined the search. McBay hopes Q's canines and horses can pick up on anything she might have missed. But she worries there may not be any traces to find after last week's flooding.
Any clothing or pieces of things that she may have left behind, any of that footprints, it's all going to be gone in those areas.
She's consumed by thoughts of her mother, alone in those elements. Marsh suffers from neck and back pain as well as depression.
I don't know that she could fight someone off. I don't know that she could pull herself out of, certain situations, in the elements and the temperatures.
And as more time passes, she worries not only about her mother's safety, but also public interest. She says her mother falls under a category that's sometimes forgotten about. She's elderly and disabled.
It doesn't make her any less important, and it doesn't make her any less at risk.
She worries people will forget and move on.
Yeah, everyone has to go on with their own lives.
While her life remains at a standstill. McBay says she organized a community search about 2 weekends ago, and she says 30 to 40 people showed up to help. Now she organized another search this past weekend, and she said only about 3 or 4 volunteers came to help. She says it's certainly disheartening, but it's not going to stop her from continuing to search. Live in Conway, Anjali Patel, ABC 15 News. When appliance repairman Ernest Skelton came to fix Caroline Brock's washer and dryer on Saturday, she asked him something no white person has ever asked him before. What is it like to be a black man in America?
Ernest showed up at my door, and I just had to address it. I couldn't pretend that nothing was going on as we were watching news of the protests and the riots upstairs.
And Brock says the answer she got was eye-opening.
I'm going to say, it really shocked me, because I didn't know this was what a normal black man has to deal with every day.
He told her about the numerous times he claims he's been pulled over by Myrtle Beach police.
I get pulled over because my truck fit a description of a robbery and stuff like that. They questioned me about the boxes in my car.
And he says the harassment's gotten so bad, he doesn't even go out after dark anymore.
As soon as I'm 5 minutes from the house, the blue light come on, I'm pulling over. They're gonna ask me what I'm doing out this time of night. And I'm like, dude, really? I got a sign on my truck, invoices, and, showing that I just got out from work.
He told her about how difficult it was for him to find a job, even though he has 2 degrees. And sometimes he says even his own customers question his qualifications.
I have customers asking me, are you certified? Or do you know what you're doing? I mean, They want a background history.
Brock says it was an uncomfortable conversation, but a necessary one.
Let's not pretend that it doesn't exist. Let's really ask the hard questions and be willing and open to see what's under there.
And with his blessing, she posted what she learned from him on Facebook. It's been shared hundreds of thousands of times, some offering their sympathy, others sharing similar experiences.
It was overwhelmed. I have a lot of people, and to be honest with you, I had to leave my phone in the car now because it's still ringing. And I'm still getting a lot of support.
Even Myrtle Beach City Manager John Peterson saw the post. He says Myrtle Beach police are looking into his claims, but they only have one incident on record that relates to a 2014 traffic accident. Skelton says he thinks many of his encounters with the police here have gotten undocumented, though.
So if I'm getting pulled over for no reason at all, of course they're not going to put that in documents.
Ernest Skelton says he doesn't have high hopes that things will get better.
I don't think it's going to change no way soon.
But he says if you're in a position of privilege, simply taking the time to ask and listen is a good start.
Doing fine. I know life is rough. Wait till later.
Swaddling, snuggling, and singing.
Where will the baby's dimple be?
Those are just some of Joyce McIntyre's responsibilities in the newborn nursery at Conway Medical Center.
It's nice to have them and do what they need, but then it's nice also to give them back and go home.
She's a cuddler, and she's there whenever they need her.
If they call me on emergency, I'd be right here.
She helps the nurses by feeding babies, changing diapers, restocking the unit with supplies, and of course, cuddling.
If we're holding the baby, it gives the nurses a chance to do all the work that they have to do.
Kathy Wade is the clinical coordinator for the newborn nursery. She says her unit relies on cuddlers because her nurses already have enough on their plates.
They help us tremendously. Newborns, from the minute they're born, they need human touch, voices, cuddling, soothing.
About 1,300 babies are born every year at Conway Medical Center, and the newborn unit has a staff of about 82 people.
Part of a newborn being able to bond with humans is having their needs met in a timely manner when they're babies.
Wade says the cuddlers are especially helpful with the babies that need a little extra love. For the last 4 years, Horry County has had the highest rate of babies born with drug addiction or neonatal abstinence syndrome in the entire state. 13 in every 1,000 babies born in Horry County in 2018 had neonatal abstinence syndrome, or NAS. That's according to the Office of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs. Wade says CMC sees a lot of babies born with NAS, many of them a product of the opioid crisis.
It doesn't just affect the adults, it affects the babies really for sometimes their entire life.
She says they're often in pain from the moment they enter the world.
They're uncomfortable, they're in pain, they're highly sensitive to sound and noise, and some of them are highly sensitive to touch at first.
And sometimes those babies have to stay at the hospital for weeks, maybe even months.
We had one here for so long, one of the nurses says, just tell the school bus to stop by and pick it up. You know, and it's just so darn hard to have a baby here that long.
Wade says that's why people like Joyce McIntyre are so vital.
After we begin the medication treatments, then they crave the touch. They want to be held and cuddled and fed, and the volunteers help so much with that.
Volunteers spend about 40,000 hours a year at the hospital, a service that would cost about $800,000. The Cuddler program is the most popular among volunteers. Right now, they've got 25 cuddlers and plenty more on a waiting list. Director of Volunteer Services Carol Biagini says that's because we have so many retirees living in our area.
A lot of them have left their families, either in the northern states or the western states, and they don't see a lot of their grandchildren, so they want that cuddle time.
McIntyre's kids and grandkids are grown and live far away.
I've changed a lot of diapers so far.
But her days of swaddling and singing,
Baby's cheek or baby's chin,
are far from over.
he would be a sin.
Anjali Patel, ABC 15 News.